like you're talking to somebody where you'd never even think about it, and then you just suddenly bring something up, and it's like, oh, by the way, I have an extra $5 million. I'd love to give you to you. You know,
Right.
It's just like that can happen as well. But again, it is networking,
Right.
in one shape or form, type of thing, right?
Welcome to this episode of the H Club podcast. I'm joined by my two friends, Andrew and Nate. Guys, can you please introduce yourself? That is
That's
too classic. That is too classic of our.
It's a bit we worked on downstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Nathan Dales, and I live in Toronto. No, whatever, yeah. I'm Nathan Dales, and I know James from the club.
We met at the club.
I fucking love it.
I think I'd say baseball. We know each other from baseball.
Is it the kind of baseball that you get to and then you don't actually play, or is it the kind of baseball that you actually play?
We know each other from multiple dynamics of softball.
Multiple dynamics of softball, but they're great. And yeah, so that's me.
Yeah.
I'm here.
I'm Andrew Herr. He's Daryl on the show. I'm Jonesy on the show. Met you through the club. We've been fast friends, I'd say.
Yep.
And thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so to be joined by my two friends here, friends who I knew of before I knew as people. You know, it's been really cool to become friends with I guess people that the memory of knowing who somebody is and then becoming friends with them and then meeting them as a real person has been kind of fun. I haven't been wildly disappointed yet.
Give it time.
But,
Give it time.
Yeah. But what I really have enjoyed, I guess, both collectively, but also with each of you is the conversations we've had. I think one thing that I've really enjoyed about getting to know both of you is just how we're very similar in some ways, but we have very different lives in other ways, specifically work-wise, right? Like we have a lot of common things that we enjoy together, but your day-to-day is so fascinating to me. And I think the way some of the questions we've gone back and forth, and that's what I really wanted to bring to our network here. So with the purpose of this podcast being sharing interesting and diverse perspectives, far as anyone I've met, you guys have a very different and unique experience in your journey, both through the success of Letterkenny, but also like the different projects you've worked on, the projects you will work on. Just want to share that with our network. And so, why don't we start there? Why don't we talk about Letterkenny, how I knew of you before I knew you? What was that origin like? How did that get started? Can you shed some light?
Yeah, totally. So we all met in Vancouver years and years and years ago, and so I think it was 6 or 7 or 8 of us. I think
it was 4 of us plus Tyler.
Only 5.
Which we don't really count.
What about Jamie though? Get 6 in there.
Well, sorry, Jamie. Right? Yeah, Jamie's the known as the
ginger,
the ginger who allegedly fucks ostriches. So I blacked that part out as well.
Anyways, but so here's the thing. So there were 6 of us. If we're going straight up, there's 6 of us, and we all played on a beer league hockey team together in Vancouver at Thunderbird Arena at UBC, and it was called the Trappers. And so we all met. We were actors before, but we all met playing beer league hockey, which was super fun. And then Jared Kiso was one of them, and so he and I started doing like YouTube shorts. We were kind of a little bit, and the reason behind doing those is we were kind of the same mindset that when you go into an audition, pardon me, and you beg for a job that you don't want, it's like, what am I doing here?
Sure.
So we decided, well, let's make some of our own content, and maybe everybody hates it, maybe it's the stupidest thing ever, but maybe it's kind of funny, who knows? And so we did. The first thing, so Jared and I were big hockey fans, as we still are, but we were particularly Calgary Flames fans. And so the first like YouTube shorts that we did were called Flames Fans, 3 Flames Fans. Mixed reviews on those ones. And then, but afterwards, so we did a couple of those, maybe 5 of those or something like that, little 2-minute videos. And then he came to me with the idea of a thing called Letterkenny Problems, basically in the vein of shit girls say, just one line straight to camera. What's a problem you would have if you were a small town person? And that's how we got involved with it too, because there were 5 of those episodes. And then Dylan and Andrew got involved as well with that, because again, we're all on the hockey team together. And they're actors as well. It's not like I'll get some of my buddies to do this. It's just like, no, we're all like working actors to like doing our thing or whatever. end up doing five of the shorts, and then
for me, it was like I went to, it's a longer winded story, but I was going to UBC still. And I just got an agent because I did an acting conservatory for a year. I deferred UBC, then came back. And I'd met Dylan through rather a sad story, but I ended up meeting Dylan and he brought me on the Trappers. And actually it was my first professional gig was to play Mark Howe, and he was Marty Howe in this CBC bioepic of Gordie Howe. So Dylan and I had been roommates, knew each other, and then we played brothers. The Howe brothers. And so I think for Jared, he's like, well, these guys play hockey. Yeah. They're both meatheads.
Yeah. So this is Dylan, your counterpart on the show.
Yeah, he's Riley, I'm Jonesy.
The hockey bros.
The hockey bros. So, and we did have, I think from day one, we can say like, we just had effortless chemistry. Uh-huh. So yeah, Jared was like, and I think maybe Jamie had a hand in it too, where it's like, well, these two guys just played brothers. They play hockey. Sure. But I was kind of new to the scene. So I was in a frat, and I was still kind of very non-committal with this hockey team. Like I'd paid, and I'd always say, so I hadn't met James Moore, who was the organizer of this team, and I told Dylan I'd play. So I'd always reply this email like, yeah, I'll be there. I just never would show up.
Just fucking never showed up ever.
So I was like, definitely like yeah. And one day I look at my phone and I get this scathing email from James Moore, who I've never met, saying, hey dude, either show up or see you later. Yeah. And so I was like, all right, I felt bad. I'm going to show up. And it's kind of funny. If I didn't, would I be on Letterkenny? I don't know. Probably not.
It's that whole burnt toast theory, right? Yeah. I burn the toast, I don't get hit by the bus or something like that. I don't burn the toast, I do get hit by the bus.
Butterfly effect in full effect.
Boom. Good Ashton Kutcher movie, by the way.
But yeah, and then when these guys started doing these sketches, I didn't really think much of it, to be honest. Like I knew it was kind of growing in popularity, and Jared asked us to do it, but I think I was just kind of young and wasn't really thinking too far. It was this also very green.
Was it? I remember seeing the videos, like the initial, the one with featuring you, you and Dylan. The Letterkenny problems, hockey player problems.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was this before kind of content creation was like an easy way into getting your name known, or was it the right place, right time for that?
I think. There was no TikTok.
Yeah.
There wasn't that. We started them. Jared and I started doing Three Flames Fans in 2012. Mm-hmm. And then we started doing Letterkenny Problems in 2013. Mm-hmm. And so at that time, I think you're right. I think it was right place, right time, because traditionally how you get a television show is you write a pilot script, you shoot, get somebody to put up a shit ton of money for a pilot episode, and then hopefully the network wants to pick it up for a season, right? But this was completely different because it was like, oh, well, we have a pilot episode in 5 little shorts, 2 minutes, that cost not nearly as much as like a whole pilot episode would cost. But what you have is the exact same stuff as, say, a focus group and whatever, but even much more dedicated to the truth in terms of analytics, because you have perfect number of views, perfect number of reviews,
comments,
comments, all this type of shit. So fans and everybody. And so what happens is you take that then and you take those numbers, and it kind of sucks to say this because creativity has a lot to do with getting those numbers, but what the networks are looking for are just numbers. They kind of don't give a shit. Because, and granted, man, if they're going to put up money to put on a show, they need to see that. Again, traditionally it would be, say, a focus group or 10 focus groups, right. But and then now it's just like, oh no, we have the numbers to back this up. This is funny and it's good and the comments are great, but here are the actual numbers from YouTube. Here are the analytics. Right. Here's where it's spread to. Here's this, whatever. And then that's how we got the first season. And by the way, we didn't even get a pilot episode. They went from 5 YouTube shorts to 6 episodes.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So we want to talk later about the return on investment and sort of the whole business model of the industry of film and TV shows. Like that was something I've enjoyed learning from you guys, but I don't want to get there yet. Let's talk about now. So the shorts were successful enough to get a full season. Yeah. You guys ran 12 seasons, won awards, 80 plus episodes. I would love to know what sticks out What memories, fun times, like what comes to mind when you think about that part of your life?
Oh shit.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think back on it too, and I was just doing this yesterday. I was explaining to somebody yesterday that I was speaking with, that a really good thing to do is to take stock, because I think for the last 8-9 years that we've been doing this or whatever, I haven't really been like, oh, remember that was really cool, except for in passing with the people that you've done it with.
Yeah.
And so it's hard because it kind of does get muddled. I mean, you do anything for 8 years, doesn't matter what it is, TV show or anything like that, it's going to kind of get muddled. I know that we did a live tour of the show as well, and we toured the States for 36 cities, in 60 days or whatever the hell it was. And those were some of the funnest times, because that's more in recent memory as well. But also too, for me, like we played Madison Square Garden, and we played Las Vegas, and it was just like we're playing these huge, massive venues, and it's just like what are you boneheads doing in fucking Madison Square Garden? And it's just
you've already swore multiple times, and so have you. So you don't have to. There's no pardon my French.
Well, good, because
this is H Club Uncensored.
But this is the thing. Like legitimately, that's the stuff that kind of sticks out. I mean, there are certain moments that we had great times, going out all around the States and having fun, great restaurants, good people, whatever. But it's just like those little ones. Like we played Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
It was so cool, like that kind of stuff. It's like those are the ones that stick out for me big. And I know that's not quite the filming of the show, but those ones are kind of the coolest, because it's just like, look at the cool cities that we've gone to.
Yeah,
look at the interesting people and the massive venues and stuff like that. Anyway, so I love those.
That's a good one.
For me, in relation to the show, I just remember season 1. I think a lot of people would be like, okay, well, just because it was a hit on YouTube doesn't necessarily mean it's going to transition into a show well.
Sure.
And I just remember we didn't. It was originally the 4 of us. Then we brought on all these other people, like Lisa Codrington as Gail, and Tyler as Stuart, and Evan, and K-Trev, and Michelle, and all these people. And I just remember, in season 1, it was pretty low budget still, and so we all shared one trailer. Usually on set, you have your own individual trailers. But on season 1, we had just one communal trailer where we're all.
It was fucking busted too. It was the dirtiest, grossest thing ever.
But and people are fighting for couch space to have a nap.
From what I've heard about your crew, that communal trailer is probably what was very important. To the chemistry.
Dude, I think I think in a lot of ways it brought people together right away, because we were forced to just be in this one trailer, and we didn't know what this show was yet, but it was quirky and weird, and characters were crazy. And I just remember looking around going what the hell are we about to embark on?
First of all, where in the hell are we? And second of all, why am I
what is going on here?
Why am I got my face in everybody's feet right now trying to take a fucking nap?
And we had a bit of a habit of, we'd wrap on Friday night, and we all went out. We usually went out pretty hard, I'd say, in the first couple of seasons. We had a bit of a
first couple of seasons,
finding your characters, right?
Yeah. Character work,
an affinity for some Gus and Brew, and
yeah, exactly.
So hearing some other stories you've told me, just about the experience filming in Northern Ontario.
Yeah,
a lot of the themes in the show are Canadian themes, hockey, the French relationships with Quebec, and so how important or intentional were those Canadian themes when filming the series?
I think it was. I mean, I don't want to speak for Jared and Jacob who wrote it, but I think it was an unapologetic Canadian show.
Yeah,
and I think it was to some degree pretty intentional to hit certain themes about Canada. I think, speaking to Jared, he really. Maybe resented is not the right word, but he didn't like that, as a Canadian actor, a lot of times they want you to hide your Canadian accent.
Sure.
You're filming for American TV. The goal is to make it in America. He really wanted to kind of change that and say, well, why can't we export, Canadian stories, Canadian themes, have fun. And so I always call it Hillbilly Shakespeare, because it kind of hits the highbrow and the lowbrow.
Sure.
But yeah, I think a lot of that was very intentional. He had I know it originally, he's from Listowel, Ontario. We're all from different parts of Canada. The cast kind of comes from all over the place. So I think, it was important for all of us to kind of bring our own experiences to it. Like I grew up in a town of 3,000 people for 15 years, so it's very relatable for me in a lot of ways.
It's relatable. Mr. Alberta hat over there. It's relatable for you too.
Yeah.
Fucking A. I completely agree with Hersey. It is very much an unapologetically Canadian show, but it's not an Eastern Canadian show, a Western. It's like an all types. And like you're saying, everybody came from everywhere. And it kind of just rang true. And that's the thing that, you know, we've talked about this for a long time. It's just like, regardless of where you're from in Canada, and, you know, stretch that into the States as well. It's just like everybody knows those groups of people to a certain degree. It's like, you know, the deadbeat skids, you know, the hicks, you know, the hockey players to an extent. I mean, if they're lacrosse players, if they're not quite hicks, if they're fucking super, whatever, but it's like, it is relatable. And so that's, I think, kind of what hit. That's what hit for Canadians because it was cool because everybody knew that kind of stuff. But then also, too, you realized, well, it's just kind of everywhere in this North American continent. It's just like, well, in the English-speaking part of this, it's just like, yep, everybody's kind of the same or sort of knows that kind of stuff. And so it does... and I think that was a big one that translated to the States for us because of that. Because it was like, I mean, okay, instead of hockey players, make them lacrosse players in your mind. And you're just like, I fucking know that guy. You know what I mean?
And rural Canada. Like, I think rural Canada was rather unrepresented. I mean, there was the Trailer Park Boys, but, you know, and as the show progressed, they brought on, like, the Newfies and the Quebecois. Like, they didn't start... It didn't... But I think it got bigger and bigger. Like, you know, there's so many characters. It's kind of like The Simpsons. There's so many different characters in the show.
So, you know, it's to kind of bring it to characters. I can remember watching one of the shorts. What you said almost 9 years ago when they came out, 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
over
that's
10 years
that's
ago.
over 10 years ago.
Over 10 years ago.
Yep.
And I remember.
I know, right?
You know, thinking the hockey bros are... I'm a basketball guy. So I already have a predisposition to dislike hockey bros. as if I didn't need one, right? And so here's this, you know, guy with the shades and the tank top, like, and I'm just, you know, I didn't like him. The character who's playing, I didn't like him. So now to be, you know, consider Andrew a friend and a guy that I really like as a person that I think is smart, and to then kind of have that in my head with like this character that was portrayed where, you know, I didn't think about that clip for every day for 10 years. But when I thought back to it, I was like, this guy was
this shaved chest motherfucker.
Like, what a, you know?
Yeah.
I said weapons free and then I resisted swearing there. But here's the thing. The point
off, boys.
So I can't do talk shows.
This isn't a morning show. So
this is not a drive time interview.
Okay. I guess the point I'm getting at is, what is that like playing a character, meeting people who expect you to be that character, and is there ever any point where just what's that like?
It's a bug out sometimes because I think, especially in the first couple of years and however many seasons we did in the first couple of years or whatever, I had lots of people come up and ask me, like, what farming is really like.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I have kind of I have a prickly demeanor sometimes. And so immediately I want to clap back and be like, well, you're an idiot. So don't even talk to me, because how could you think this is television? This is not real life. And then it's just like, no, but I feel like it made sense in the fact that the show was true to what they thought or had in their minds as would be, a farmer. And so it's just like, okay, well, no, actually, guys, it's not a reality television show. This is completely scripted. And I'm actually quite a fancy boy, I want to walk around a big city. I don't want to.
Nate doesn't farm.
Yeah, there's no way in hell I farm. So it's a little bit interesting because you have people that want to, buy you bags of beef jerky and like, yeah, this will be great for plowing, and it's just like I'm a fucking actor. Like, I understand and thank you, because maybe I'm doing a good job, or who the hell knows, or the show's doing a great job with writing or whatever. But it's just like, no. That's not me. So it's an interesting one, trying to balance telling somebody you're wrong, please check what you know about television, with also
maybe interject, but appreciating that you've compelled them into the story.
Exactly.
And they got to be part of this story where you are the farmer and the hick, and you are the hockey bro.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, in a lot of ways, I'm not like Jonesy, but I do believe every actor brings himself to a role.
100%.
So there's definitely a goofiness that I have that Jonesy has.
Yeah, shaved chest,
treasure trail that goes up to here now.
Yeah. Well, we all age and evolve.
Yeah. Much hairier than I was when I started out. But that's a big difference. I found like I was, at the start, I mean, first of all, it was my first lead role on a TV series, so I was just jazzed to do it. But I think the biggest thing is I love to read. I'm a big reader, and so a lot of hockey bros would come up to Dylan and I, and they'd be like, I think they would expect us to be like those guys.
Yeah, just a little bit more, like over the top, and like they'd offer us like Skull, and we'd be like, oh no, we don't chew. That was actually just beef jerky, and they'd be like, you don't chew? We're like, no, no. Like you've offended their religion.
They're like, oh, dude, you don't. Like they're like,
you break the fourth wall there, and they don't like that.
You bum them out, but generally, like 99% of my interactions with fans have been great, and even the 1%, they're just they're just so hyped, and you're in a private moment. Like I have had people come up to me like, well, I'm peeing in a urinal, and I'm like,
yeah,
nice to meet you, but also like I'm pissing right now.
It's like I'll turn around and soak your leg if you want me to, but like
I'm not even claiming to be like super famous, but it's a popular show, so watching it get more and more over time was interesting. But that's
I think you're right though. I think there is definitely a part of it. You bring something from yourself to it.
Yeah.
Right. But it is. So in that respect, it is you totally truthful to yourself in certain respects, but also couldn't be more different in some ways. So it's just it's acting, right? It's like that's the balancing act that you do with it.
Yeah.
So I would sort of kind of say that, yeah, I've seen that element as we've become friends. We're out for dinner and people want to stop by and just say hi and recognize you and have their own moment because that's important to them. But then I've also seen throughout our friendship, like the different thing that work means to you guys.
Yeah.
Where I've seen you guys, at a table just writing in a book, in like a journal. And I remember I interrupt, like just came up and said hi, because to me that doesn't look like work. To me, doesn't look like you have a double monitor. Spreadsheets open like that. So then I realized after that I interrupted like a brain flow there. Right? Like
this can't be work. Look at these idiots.
I do have a dual monitor, by the way, at home. I do.
No, yes, of course. You know your way.
He hates it.
He's so fucking proud of that dual monitor.
If I give you Excel 101, how are you gonna do?
Ooh, no.
So
he's still writing in a journal on the dual monitor.
It's two journals at once.
And word art.
Word art. Yeah, word art.
No, of course you're
yeah.
Anyways,
the point is our work is different. Our work is different, and that's what I kind of find very fascinating. And I guess what I want to ask is, how do you, because you don't have an office to go to, like a traditional, like what I'm envisioning as a traditional office with, but you have to self-motivate yourself. You have to find the ways to get the creative juices flowing to write or to prepare for auditions. What are your tricks or tips or anything that you've learned to kind of get in that right space? What works for you that maybe might even help other people who are trying to be creative for their own work or for their own hobbies? Like how do you figure that out?
I do think there's like at least for me, I have to have like a discipline of doing it every day, because you're not gonna strike gold every time you try and be creative. I think it's just like a bit of a numbers game. But I think the biggest thing is no matter what, life happens. There's a lot of things that might happen in your day, but if you can carve out even just an hour, where you set a timer, you don't look at a phone, you don't look unless you're like trying to research something, but you live in an unstructured world for that hour, where like you're not worried about sending off to your accountant or replying to this email or calling your dad or whatever it is, but you have like just 1 hour a day or 15 minutes, but in that 15 minutes I try to just completely free myself of everything else going on.
So you create structure to have a freedom.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a similar style, or do you have your own approach?
I think he's right on that. I think that does work for a lot of people. Especially when you need to self-motivate, when it is basically everything that you do is on spec, right? So if you don't do it, no big deal because nobody's asking for it. But if you don't do it, you don't do it. So you got to have something that works for you, and I think that works for a lot of people with that kind of structure. Again, structure create freedom, right? For me, it doesn't work as well like that, but definitely not as structured, but very similar. Where it's like maybe I'm not sitting down at a computer or at a notebook or something like that, and let's forget the phone, forget everything, blah, blah, whatever for an hour. It's just like for me, it's this is gonna sound so stupid. For me, it's going and walking backwards in like a field where my dog is chasing a stick, and it's just like, okay, forget my phone, keep it in my pocket. You fucking think it's hilarious, don't you?
Yeah, and also, he just really wants to be a farmer.
It's a dog park, people.
Yeah, okay,
Anyways, but that's the kind of thing. So it's just like, so same idea as create some structure so you can have some freedom to think, to not be distracted by things. And that for me is more helpful than sitting down and doing it. I have an attention problem for most of the time. So that to me, I'm doing something, but at the same time, not doing my phone, not thinking about anything else. And the only thing I'm doing is picking up a piece of stick, throwing it for the dog. And in that frees my brain to go, all right, well, I was having a problem with this part of a script, or I'm having a problem with this, something create, whatever it is. It goes like, it's like the shower principle, whatever. You just stop thinking about it for a second, free your mind, and then you're just like, oh fuck, like there we go. Now it's happening. And then pull out the phone and do a voice note or whatever, you know what I mean? Sure. But so I agree. Yeah. Creating structure somehow, and for me, structure is walking backwards in a field, throwing a stick.
Well, what I love about this is sort of the two different pieces of wisdom, both ways to find creativity. What I heard from you is you create structure knowing that not every time I'm going to find gold, but if I can just get myself to the notebook or get myself to the computer for this defined amount of time, you're creating the opportunity for that lightning to strike. And then for you, what I'm hearing is you put yourselves in places where your mind can be the most free, or like the creativity can happen the most. Like I love that, because I think these are not just tips that work for people who are trying to write or create creative content. This is I think it's pretty transferable.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I think about that a lot. Like if I can just, on days I just don't have it, if I can just get to the chair, I'll probably be able to sit there for an hour and just put other work. I'm thinking about like a weekend when I got to do some work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I've used this term called like brain work. When I want to do something creative, we've talked about this, I love whiteboards. Off camera, we got this nice whiteboard, and I think
it's a beauty.
That's my walking backwards in an open field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like cool to kind of figure out, as different to everybody, what are the things that they can't spark creativity, but that create the right setting to take place.
So if there is a spark, you're going to be open to receiving.
Yeah. You're putting the tinder, you're putting the tinder down, drying the wood, and then like you got to wait for the spark. Yeah. Figure out if sparks come from other people, or if you're the kind of person that you sparks have. Anyways, that is super. Like I love that bit of wisdom, and I love that that's come from like your unique journeys, right? As like both acting, writing, the different things that you've done on that. And I guess the last topic I want to ask about on that bit is the variability of, some seasons you're filming, some seasons you're writing, some you're auditioning. Like what's that like to be going? Like how do you rearrange your life based on what's in front of you?
I mean, I write every day, but then like usually auditions. I mean, these days actually been better. When you first start off, sometimes they give you you got to do it the next day, so you kind of got to just drop your life and make it work. Mm-hmm. These days, I usually get at least a few days up to a week in advance of auditions, so then I can kind of plan my days a little bit more. Like, hey, I'm gonna write in the morning, work on the afternoon. I have a weird way of learning lines, or I walk around bouncing a ball. Or I'll walk around the streets.
And he laughs at me for walking backwards in a field, hey?
Yeah. Well, any chance I get to laugh at you, I'm going to take it, obviously. So. But I think, every artist or anyone who's kind of self-employed in a way, or entrepreneurial, even though I wouldn't call acting.
I would, yeah. Absolutely, I would.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I would.
You kind of have to have your own rules or your own systems in place, whatever everyone might be walking backwards like an nincompoop,
or bouncing a ball like a doofus,
like a fucking jabroni.
Or you might be walking around the street with a bouncy ball, talking to yourself and scaring everybody. Like,
sure.
So like I don't know, but I think all artists kind of have. Or anyone creative or any entrepreneur or whatever who you're working or you're relying on yourself, you have your own system.
Definitely
for dealing with certain things.
I think that's also true. Maybe you don't even know exactly or could explain to somebody what your system is, but you have to. Things are going to come in and they're going to come in. You could go, if you choose not to do anything for say 2 days, you could get absolutely no phone calls, no emails or anything for 2 days. And then the third day, say like a Wednesday or whatever, we're starting out the week, you could get say 5 auditions, plus you have to do this, plus this. So it's just like, if you don't have some kind of a system, and whether or not you can explain that to somebody, like I'm saying, if you don't have some kind of system, like you can just get a tidal wave immediately.
Sure. So
you have to figure out how you're going to manage that stuff because there's only so many hours in a day, right?
We didn't even touch on we've been talking a lot more of the art part of acting. We haven't really talked about the business part of acting and the whole industry. So I want to kind of get into networking. We've had conversations for sure about how important networking is in kind of both of our respective fields.
Yeah.
Frankly, the objective of this whole podcast is to share conversations with people from within our network with other people in the network.
Yeah.
Like I love the idea that you two have become friends. And if another friend who you've not met sees this and either is interested or learn more or thinks there's some, partnership opportunities, like we can make the connection. Yeah. So I digress, but obviously, I love events and networking and that, but how is it? Well, it is like truly, I can't help it. Like networking is creating value at no cost. If you can introduce 2 people, that is just value creation as like plain and simple. And that has to happen in your industry, right? Can we talk about different opportunities? If I were to distill it to one question, why is networking important in your industry? And maybe I'll ask, can I ask you, Nate, to think about that and start with that?
Yeah. Well, like you're saying, networking is important regardless. It is adding value with not a ton of effort, or it can be. The entertainment business is an interesting one because it is a lot of the time based solely on relationships, and that's it. And like a lot of businesses are. Yeah. But starting out as an actor, your agent gives you an audition. You go in, or you used to, go in and see a casting director and audition for them, right? And if they didn't know you, even if you did pretty well and like, okay, cool, you could have it. It's just like, well, they don't know you. So they're kind of like, I'm going to go with the person that I know. So right there, once you start auditioning for them more and more and more, you create that relationship. And all of a sudden, maybe you're not totally right for it, but they know you. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they're going to bring you back for more auditions and give you jobs and stuff like that. So that creation of those relationships, that's a weird sort of power dynamic there, but it is a networking thing. And that's it. I mean, that's why there are film festivals and there are events every single night, and maybe 50 of them every single night, is because it is an opportunity to meet like-minded people that potentially can give you a job. You can give them a job, whatever. You can just make a connection, do a creative thing, do whatever you want.
Right.
But networking is so important because also, too, we live in a public-facing business and a public-facing reality. And so it's just like, if people don't know this, be it on the screen or at a party or something like that, well, nobody gives a shit because they're just like, okay, well, sorry, who? And it's just like, oh, well, no. So you get out there and you do it, you make those connections, and all of a sudden you're either talking to like-minded people or, again, people that could give you a job, you give them a job, something like that. So it's incredibly important. Now, that can be taxing on people as well, because what if you don't, TIFF is for a week or 10 days or whatever. What if you don't feel like going out for those 10 days? What if you don't feel like going out for one of those or whatever?
That's the grind of it, right?
That's the grind of it. So therein lies kind of the, I guess, the conundrum of, I don't really feel like it, and it's not supposed to be work, just meeting people, but it has, whatever. But it's just like, that's what you need to do. Because, again, public-facing business, public-facing actors for sure. It's just like if people don't know who you are or know you, they have a harder time trusting you with, say, giving you a job if you're talking about the casting director relationship again. So it's incredibly important.
I mean, Andrew talked about, we opened the show talking about kind of the coincidence of playing hockey together.
Yeah.
Which is the best form of networking. When you're networking without a motive.
Yeah.
Or without a clear reason to network is often when I think it's the most effective, when you actually build a relationship or a friendship that is genuine and it's not transparent.
Yeah. Well, and I think especially in our business, it's a very collaborative business.
Mm-hmm.
So, not only do you, is it a public facing bit, you're struggling for that word right now, but it's, you want to find like-minded people. You want to, when you're working with people, you kind of want to, that's the beauty of it, is you line up with people. And even on Letterkenny, how many times have we been just shooting the shit and a joke comes out of it?
Sure.
And I think, because it's such a collaborative experience, you can't help but want to find like-minded people or people who are interesting or have different perspectives than you that might bring certain elements to a project that you didn't even think of in the first place. And I think the key is you do want it to be genuine. And, like any business, I think there's a mix of people just trying to climb the ranks,
sure,
and people who are actually, going around the world just being their authentic selves. And sometimes, you got to play, sometimes you got to play the game. But if you do it authentically, I think it shows through ultimately long term.
You talked about it as a business there, and I think that I think this would be a great place to kind of end on. I think one of the conversations that we had privately that I thought would be super interesting for my clients who kind of know me as an investor, I'm super fascinated by investing, was just I love movies. I've watched hundreds, maybe thousands of movies, but never thought about how movies get made, the business behind it, the investment that it takes. You see box office, you see so can you educate or maybe rehash that conversation we had about the whole business behind film and how basically how does somebody, if I invest, right, and I raise money for other investments, if I wanted to invest in a movie, could I even do that?
It is one of those, you can jump in on any moment, but it is one of those things where I think you gotta know, usually you're going to invest in independent films because studios, they don't need your money. And maybe you did mention earlier, there's a story about Wolf of Wall Street, how it got funded, in an interesting way. But, if you want to invest, you're probably going to invest in independent films that, don't have that backing of a studio because maybe they're not sure about it. There's maybe not many stars attached to it. It might be not as commercially viable. There's a number of reasons why that script probably went through a bunch of channels, but it ended up being, or maybe it's a writer, director, and a producer who wants to do it all on his own.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think ultimately it's kind of a crapshoot. You just happen to know a producer who goes around his network trying to raise money. In Canada, a lot of producers start off with either telefilm, there's a lot of grants, tax credits, or if you're doing television, there's the Canada Media Fund that can help you get your legs, but they won't give you the full solution, but they'll fund a portion of your project. But as far as getting investment, I mean, usually investors can structure it many different ways, but usually the investor pool is going to get 50% of whatever that film makes. But now with streaming, it's very hard to predict what films will be.
Right. I think when we were talking about this, we said, you could have all the, because we're talking about it as an investment, you could have projections, you could have this, but ultimately that doesn't matter unless the quality is good, right?
Yeah. And you could have a really good film but it could be, it just too niche. It has to be really good and it has to be marketable to a certain degree, to a wider audience. Not you don't want to hit everybody, but there are certain films that are really good, but they'll never see the light of day like other films just based on the content. So there's two elements to it. The business side, it has to be marketable. Used to yes, if it's Brad Pitt, still bankable, but nowadays it's very hard to predict, even with certain actors. Without saying too much, I know of a film with Anthony Hopkins they're having a hard time selling. And it's got Anthony Hopkins in it. So nowadays with streaming has kind of changed everything. AI is going to change things. The business is in a very interesting state of flux right now.
Dude, how do you not love Anthony Hopkins? Like who's not funding that thing, right? Yeah. Like if I had 25 mil in the
it's funded. It just they can't sell. They're having a hard time selling it.
That's what I meant to say. It's like how do people like not take a chance on Anthony Hopkins?
So it's too late for me to give Anthony $50,000?
No,
probably not.
Probably not.
He probably likes the finer things in life, right? So why not?
Yeah. Maybe the movie sucks though.
movie could suck. Hannibal Lecter was like 50 fucking years ago, anyways. Right?
I'm sure he's great in it, but maybe the movie's not good.
Maybe the movie sucks. But that's the thing. It's just like talk about networking and stuff like that. To get an independent film funded, made. It comes down to networking.
Yeah.
And either that is networking because you're going to professional events like film festivals, meeting people through that, or it's through family connections, it's through friend connections, it's through, if you say play at a squash club together, maybe it's a connection through there, whatever. But it's just, it kind of does come down to there almost needs to be a little bit of like magic dust on it. It's just like, hey, like you're talking to somebody where you'd never even think about it. And then you just bring something up and it's like, oh, by the way, I have an extra 5 million. I'd love to give you to you,
Right.
It's just like that can happen as well. But again, it is networking.
Right.
In one shape or form type of thing, right?
Wow. Yeah, it's really a complex business when you think about there's the art form of it. Behind that, there's the business form of it. And then behind that, there's an element of just timing. It has to be the right story at the right time and strike the right chord with the temperature of the world, of the culture. Right. When you think about some movies that absolutely slapped in like when we were growing up, they would not get made today.
No. And there's movies that we know as classics that didn't slap when they first got released and they aged well.
And then there's
like Shawshank Redemption, I don't even think did well initially in the box office. And that's like,
it's like the most watched movie of all time.
Yeah. But initially it wasn't.
Right.
I think it was received well, but I just don't think they made the splash they were looking to make originally.
It's like a class. Well, I don't know.
It's my favorite movie.
It is a slow burn in terms of
that's true.
No. In terms of like what they're doing, like they'll make money on that for hundreds of years possibly. It's not like Turner Classic Movies 50 times a day. So it's just like maybe it didn't do well right away again, but it's just like that's kind of talking about investing in movies.
Right.
As an investor, if you did invest in Shawshank and it kind of did crummy at the box office or whatever it did, I don't even know the stats or anything like that, but it's like that you still have invested in the entire thing. So if it makes money for the next 50, 100 years, you are making money for the next 50, 100 years as an investor. Yeah.
The perpetual stream that comes from creating an asset that like is a living, it's a hard asset.
Yeah.
A creative asset.
So there's the other thing too, like, put out a movie, maybe it does well, maybe it doesn't. There's nothing to say that in 15 years, holy shit, all of a sudden it's got like some weird new cult following. It's just like when you are an investor in that and it's in perpetuity, it could potentially be a moneymaker for the rest of your life. Now, it could potentially make zero money for the rest of your life. But it's like a big thing with concerts and tours right now.
Right.
It's nostalgia from the like 2008s, 2007s, and now they're all going and doing these massive stadium tours because it's come back around. So like if you invested in Avril Lavigne and whenever she, became a star, good for you because you made a ton of bank and then she kind of did what everybody does because you can't not. And now she's making this huge cut. It's like that kind of stuff. It's just like there's potential to make money in perpetuity. And again, but if it doesn't make any money, you don't make any money. So it's like, but they're talking about the magic dust and that kind of stuff. If it has it, maybe you can make money for the next 50 years, maybe 100.
So to bring it back to our softball, it's a home run shot.
It's a home run shot. They call that the dinger.
The dinger. Boys, friends, this has been a great time. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Can't wait to see what you guys do next. Have a great one.
Love it,
buddy. Thanks, friends.
Thanks, buddy.